All right, here is my presentation of my portfolio. My name is Crosby. First of all, the theme of my portfolio is correlation. This is something that I've developed just in my time working with data and assessment with my school district to try to improve our assessment initiative. What we see and what I've learned through the class most specifically is there's a lack of correlation between standards and learning objectives, a lack of correlation between learning objectives and assessments, and then majorly a lack of correlation of expectations for the level of thinking at the school district and state level, as well as the rigor of assessments at the school district and state level. And this is where we're seeing a deficit in student achievement in our district. For Artifact 1, I chose my performance assessment rubric. I chose this because it highlights the importance of assessing higher order thinking skills that we saw in the revised Bloom's taxonomy throughout the course. When using this rubric that I created, I think it's really important to ask students to grade themselves and to get in the habit of using a rubric and seeing what they're graded on. So I always make sure students have these before we do a performance assessment so they know what the expectation is. And also they grade themselves and then we conference together and compare their results. And this helps my students correlate their effort and their learning for success. For Artifact 2, I chose the article Standards-Based Assessments in the Classroom, a Feasible Approach to Improving the Quality of Students' Learning. I loved this article. I chose this because it really related to what I'm seeing in my school and in my school district, where we're seeing low student performance and the district, the state, the teachers are all working, with all wheels turning to try to get students to perform, and we're not seeing anything. And that's because there's a lack of correlation specifically between the standards and what is being assessed at the school level. There's a huge gap there. And without correlating our assessments at the school level to state standards, our students will never be successful on state standardized testing, which is what our school is judged on and where our funding comes from, as well as now how teachers are evaluated. So upping what we're asking our students to do and the rigor at the school level by using the standards to help them find success is very important. And this is exactly what the author saw in India, that they were addressing some issues there as a country, and I feel like as a state we're beginning to get to the same point, specifically with the new Read to Succeed law that's coming into play this year. Finally, for Artifact 3, I chose a variety of discussion board quotes just because there were so many that really stuck out and were in line with what I'm feeling as an educator, what other educators that I work with are feeling. The first one being, from a professional standpoint, I see where assessment is necessary and often does provide a platform to assess student progress and mastery. However, in public education, assessment, in my opinion, has become too obsessive. It has lost meaning and validity as students and teachers do not see the value and true meaning of all the different assessments that are in place. And the next quote goes right along with this. Every year there are assessments of all kinds that we are required to administer, and often I wonder if all the assessments prove to be more harmful than beneficial. So both of these students in class were kind of addressing the issue that I've seen too, where at all levels, we're kind of floundering to raise student achievement. So we're just assessing kids to death, and we're still not getting results. And that's because our assessments are not correlated across levels, which I'll get to in my closing points. Moving on to the last two quotes I talked about, I've noticed that a lot of times we simply reuse old assessments from previous years without making sure they're still relevant to everything we teach. I think as educators, we've all seen this and been guilty of it. It's really easy to just, use what we did the year before, especially if we're not changing content areas or grade levels. However, in education, everything is changing. Specifically, the group of students you're teaching is changing. So we have to make sure they're still correlated with our learning objectives. And finally, this quote I thought was awesome. Serving as an AP reader really reinforced the importance of alignment between curriculum objectives and assessment items, as well as the need for specificity in both the assessment item and the rubric. I also learned the importance of targeted, specific, formative assessment and focused feedback from my students in preparation for the AP exam. This quote, it was like an amen moment, when I read it. Without being specific in our assessments and in the rubrics, our students don't know what they're supposed to do, which leads to confusion and lack of student success. And if our assessments aren't aligned to our objectives, what are we doing? That's just really the end of the discussion. And finally, I just love when teachers bring up the importance of focused feedback and having those discussions about learning with students. Some big ideas from my portfolio: just the need for educators to work smarter, not harder. This goes back to the idea where so many of us feel like we're over-assessing kids and we just all we do is assess. And that is what it's become. So we're working harder, and that's contributing to the teacher burnout. Let's work smarter, and as a school and a school district and the state level, let's all come together, correlate what we're looking for, have a more unified approach towards assessment in order to ensure success. Creating, communicating, and assessing learning goals, in providing teachers more professional development on how to make these learning goals and objectives for their classroom based on the standards is crucial. Communicating these to students multiple times throughout your unit and parents, and directly assessing the learning goals, linking down to specific assessment items to the learning goal is essential. Higher order thinking to promote higher scores. If we're not asking our students to perform at high levels in class, how can we possibly expect them to perform at high levels on state testing? I feel like this is a huge issue where we have students who are working at the remember level all year long, and then they get to state testing where they're having to analyze, evaluate, create, and we're shocked that they can't do it. We have to increase the rigor of our classrooms and have that correlation between the level that the state is asking them to perform at and what we're asking them to perform at. Overall, the artifacts that were selected for this portfolio are designed to show how crucial it is for there to be a strong correlation among standards and assessments. Going further, there should also be a strong correlation in the level of thinking students are being asked to operate on during assessments, as well as a correlation of expectations at the school, district, and state level. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time.